love you? Do we hate you? Why should you care? Cause we're the best damn review team out there. It's time to rate that album.
Hi, and welcome to Rate That Album, the back and forth podcast review of music with myself, Paul Muad'Dib, and my wonderful, good, amazing friend, Joe Fremming. Joe, how are you doing this evening, sir?
I am doing just fine, Paul. Just fine.
Just fine.
Just
Nothing,
fine.
Just fine?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I want you to picture this. There was a time where one way or another, people were hanging on the telephone saying, will anything happen with their Sunday girl, Joe?
Telephones.
I know, right?
You couldn't even TikTok on those old fucking phones, Paul.
Dude, I was thinking about it. I remember like getting like trashed at the Java joint and like having to call my parents using 1-800-collect on the fucking public phone all the time.
When you did a local call, why were you calling collect?
Because back in that day, you had to use quarters even for local calls. Yeah. So there's that. Yeah. So, by the way, I started smoking again. So, fuck off. Joe, we are doing Blondie. Parallel Lines. What is I'll get into it, but what did you know, of growing up in the 80s about Blondie? Like, what was your introduction to Blondie?
I think probably Heart of Glass. That was just like the big song of theirs. I always thought they were a disco band because of that.
Uh-huh.
And so like in my early 20s, I bought Parallel Lines when I was working at CD Warehouse. And I was like, this album's really good. I think I may have misjudged Blondie. Because like this is a good new wave synth rock album that just happens to have one disco song on it.
Pretty much. And they ran with this disco song, by the way. And we'll actually get to that. I'll explain that. So, yeah, I think Heart of Glass, but not because I listened to it, because my that wasn't on the radio that my parents were listening to. That wasn't their style of music. It's because of all those, like, back in the 80s and 90s, there was all those compilation albums that record companies were putting out. And I remember seeing Blondie, Heart of Glass with like the fucking all the different labels of the songs and seeing a picture of Deborah Harry. But my real true introduction to anything was actually Videodrome with James Woods and Deborah Harry. And then I think it was I can't remember if it was the NSNL sketch or if it was the movie, but Wayne's World, where they talk about her being in the phone book and what it would be like with looking up a hairy Deborah. The phone book. I can't remember if that was a sketch or in the movie. But other than that, like, I was the same way, Joe, because Blondie was touted as this disco band. Yeah.
Yeah, which is weird because they were more in line with CBGB and the Ramones and the punk scene than they were with the Studio 54.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, and I'll get to that. So, I think this is a perfect time to do it. So the song that got them really into the disco and they're considered disco was Heart of Glass. And then later Rapture. Rapture kind of got into that scene which is really interesting because also had like really one of the first mainstream raps ever being done.
Flash is on that.
Right, exactly. But with Heart of Glass, the album came out in 1978. And from 1979, when it really started to take off, Blondie was called back in to do a 5-minute disco version of the song. And from 1979 to the CD release, every pressed album copy of Parallel Lines got the disco version, not the original version. So for like 8 years, you could not get the regular version of Heart of Glass. You had, which is like a 3, almost 4 minute version, with the disco version topping in at just under 6 minutes. So, and they did added some instrumentation and things like that. They really leaned into that as this crazy disco hit, which is weird because by 1979, 1980, disco was really on the way out. So it does seem kind of odd to me that there was kind of this last gasp of disco, and here it is, this experimental proto-punk band is the one that's like giving it its last gasp of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's weird.
Yeah, super weird. So let's talk about Blondie and get into them a little bit. So Deborah Harry is kind of an interesting story. She was a former waitress and Playboy bunny, and she was dating Chris Stein. It was a band called he joined this band called the Stilettos, and Deborah Harry was one of the backup vocalists, and they hooked up and started dating. And I did not know this, but Deborah Harry got her musical start in the late 60s in a band called The Winds and the Willow, and it was this folk rock band. And
it's kind of like when you find out Bon Scott from AC/DC was in a prog rock band where he played the flute.
Yeah, exactly.
Where the Judas Priest was started off as like a proggy 70s band.
Yeah, exactly. So, they did this. They kind of started this ex-Stilettos group, and they originally were billed as something called the Angel and the Snake for a couple of shows, and then in 1974 renamed themselves Blondie. And they had actually Ivan Krell, who later joined Patti Smith as their original bassist, and it's super interesting. And then he left to go with Patti Smith, and they brought in this guy Clem Burke, who is also known as Elvis Ramone from when he played with the Ramones, and this Gary Valentine. And that's in 1977 is really when they started to get their start. And that album called Plastic Letters, which was doing all right. They had some power ballads. They worked with Giorgio on some of the stuff, but it really wasn't until this album with Mark Chapman, the producer, who is known for doing a ton. I mean, he was a juggernaut in the 70s as a producer. He worked with the Knack. He worked with New World. He worked with The Sweet. He worked with Smokey. I mean, this guy, he did Tony Basil Mickey. He did Heart and Soul with Huey Lewis and the News. Pat Benatar. Goddamn right. Tina Turner, Ace of Base. This guy was awesome. So they get a hold of him, and I'm just gonna jump ahead a little bit. So after this album, they put an album called The Hunter, and then around 1982, 1983, Chris Stein is just, they don't really say, but I'm going to assume it's heroin, was really, really into some shitty fucking drugs. And so was Deborah Harry. And to the point where they had to sell their mansion because of all the debt of the drugs and everything they were running up. At one point, they were, as a couple, were over $1 million in debt. And
It's a semester of college these days.
pretty much. And that was a 5-bedroom mansion back in the day. But that's how far gone they were. I mean, and again, you got to talk about, they had a bunch of hits. Debbie was in movies like Polyester and Videodrome, but all this shit, they were just so far in the drugs, so they ended up splitting up, and that's broke up the band. And it wasn't until 1997 that communication started to happen again, and they kind of did their way, and like a lot of bands are doing now they're kind of a touring band and doing whatever. But with this album in particular, what's really fascinating is Deborah Harry and Mark Chapman did not get along. She was Mike Chapman, excuse me.
I was gonna say, did he get so upset he shoot John Lennon?
Yeah, pretty much. No, but they fought a lot, and kudos to him, because he really went into it. And he talked about it where he's like, it was horrible when they first started rehearsing. And he's like, they didn't realize what they had for hits. And, he's like, look, you guys are making a great record. You do whatever you got to do. So there was points where Deborah Harry he cited her. He's very polite. He's like, she was very moody and highly emotional person. And she would disappear in the bathroom for hours, bawling and crying, and finding out later it was a lot of drug use and that type of thing.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think his sexism overshadowed the fact that she was just going to the bathroom to spoon coke up her nose.
Pretty much for hours on end. But besides the sexism, he just realized like he was really able to read her, and as a producer was like, I knew when to give her space. And he's like, and honestly, he said what was really cool was some of the best songs would be, I'd be like, hey, you ready to record? And she'd be writing down, finishing the lyrics and being like, yep, give me 1 second. And 5 minutes later, she'd get up there and had just these lyrics made for these songs and things like that. And he's like, it was just magic. So that's what they did with this one. And what's also fascinating is not only was he fighting with Blondie, he was fighting with Chrysalis, the record company. They were on the edge of saying, this album is terrible. We're going to completely redo it with a different producer. And he had to get on the phone with them as he was leaving, like as he got back off his plane, and convincing the studio that he was going to do a few things and they were going to have an absolute massive album on their hands. And the whole time the record company was going, I don't think you did it, man. We really don't think this is going to go anywhere. We don't really like some of the things that you did on here. And he really had to convince the labels to do it. And he's like, just, you know what, let's put out a couple singles and see what people say. And that was the compromise, and boom, Parallel Lines blew up.
Well, you gotta remember, this was the time when music was changing. And so Blondie's up there with these art school kids and dropouts and whatever hanging out at CBGB. So you have television, you have Patti Smith Band, you have the Ramones, you have Blondie, you have Talking Heads, and these labels had no idea what to do with these bands. It was like like with the 60s, they had no idea how to deal with a lot of this shit, because labels were run by old dudes who didn't care.
Right. And again, as you brought up, and we'll talk about this when we get into it, is this album, I could see there is so many genres going on. And sometimes it's not even in just one song. I mean, it's not even across the album. It's in one song. It goes from like a weird proto-punk intro to a 60s, 70s standard pop rock song, but with this weird instrumentation. There's some really fascinating work on this album. And again, people would not know it. Again, I still think people, Joe, to this day, because of Rapture and Heart of Glass, are convinced that Blondie was disco, and they were far from it.
Yeah, this was like, if you listen to this and you listen to, like, say, London Calling and Sandinista by The Clash and, like, Talking Heads, it's like these bands are like musical sponges who are just like soaking everything up they could and throwing it all against, like, somehow making it work. It was kind of a really wild time for music that you really won't see. You'll never see it. We never saw again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, complete. And I'm listing this album too, and I got to admit, we will never have another because of the way things are done with, like, American Idol. We will never have another, like, Deborah Harry like singer. Yeah. It just won't happen because it's the imperfections in what she does sometimes that are the perfections.
Kind of like when we talked about Funhouse.
Mm-hmm, exactly.
It's kind of add to the charm, where today everything's just so overproduced and super slick, and it's tough to make this kind of stuff. I mean, I tried listening to like some newer music recently, and it was just so glopped with production. Like I had to turn it off. I was just like, this is just studio made. Like, it sounds like, sounds good, but it just felt just like a creation in a studio by a bunch of people and that were just trying to make a hit. It was pretty gross.
Well, Joe, should we just jump into it with Hanging on the Telephone?
Yeah, because it starts off with a banger. There's back-to-back bangers, let's just say.
Yeah, it's back-to-back bangers, 100%. So that's what I have right here. Hanging on Telephone, total banger, super smart, strong start of an album.
Yeah.
I mean, again, you have to understand, back in the day, kids, what phones were. But, this is obviously, I mean...
Yeah, people weren't answering the phone. It meant they weren't home.
Yep.
It's like, if you listen to The Wall, like the whole thing with lack of communication, it's kind of lost these days because everybody has a goddamn phone on all the time, which I hate.
Yep. Now
they don't even use the phone as a phone. I never use the phone as a phone.
No. You know how many people
I actually get startled if my phone rings.
Yeah, I'm going to call up my sister because I know she doesn't listen to this podcast. She refuses.
You put your sister in the blast zone.
Yeah, I'm going to put my sister in the blast zone.
Blast zone.
So no, she's one of those people where she's like, she'll shoot me a text and be like, "Hey, ask me a question," and then don't call me. Just respond by text when you can. And I'm like, man, what the fuck? Like, why are you paying? Like, what the fuck? Yeah, I know so many people that won't even answer their phone anymore. Now, what's interesting about this song is a cover by a band called The Nerves. And a lot of people don't even know that it's a cover. But what really got attention for this one was the fact that it was Deborah Harry. It's a female being incredibly sexual on the phone, which in 1978, which by nowadays it's nothing compared to WAP, but in 1978, this was scandalous. This was absolutely scandalous to hear a song of a woman saying on the phone, "I heard your mother. Now she's going out the door. Did she go to work or just to the store? All those things she said, I told you to ignore." Like inviting fucking, like, trying to set up a sexual, like, when are we going to meet, or doing phone sex and having the woman be the one initiating it. Totally. This was a big deal. It really was.
Yeah, it's wild just how backward everything was just a few years before we were even born.
So, I will say that. So, funny thing, I was having a hard time. We talked a little bit before the podcast, but I was having a hard time finding stuff to sleep. My insomnia, for personal reasons, has been through the fucking roof. And I watched Meatballs because it was on. I was like, oh, Meatballs. I love this movie as a kid.
It just doesn't matter.
It just doesn't matter. Joe, holy fuck. Like, there's so much in that movie that's problematic.
You know what, Paul? I'm starting to say, I think I like problematic movies.
I think I do too, but there's a scene in it where I was
You
like,
were talking about Porky's before, and there's a
I
infamous
love
for its
Porky.
very its most well-known scene is probably one of the most problematic things you'll ever see.
Are we talking about the dick grabbing scene or the?
Yeah. Of course, I'm talking about that.
Dude, the aftermath of that scene is brilliant. But the whole point when they're all in the fucking principal's office and they want to bring in a sketch artist.
Oh god! And then I don't know if you've ever watched the show Community, but then they kind of did a flip on that, and they kept calling it like what in the reverse Porky's. It was with Whitman instead of.
Yeah, no, Porky's is the movie that's problematic. But I mean, I'm watching Meatballs and I'm like, man, this seems so innocent at the time. But when you look at it and you go, oh, fuck. And again, that was made, I think, in 79 or 80. It was Bill Murray's first starring role.
He was in Caddyshack, but that was just a small side character.
Correct. That was this was his first starring role. And really, it was the start of him and Ivan Reitman's fucking crazy collaborations that they did of those strings of hits. But anyways, the point is that, yeah, it's weird that just a couple years before we were born, the fact that a woman was singing these lyrics sent people in a fucking tizzy. That's weird to me to think of. Speaking of sending people in a tizzy with another female strong lyric, you got One Way or Another.
Yeah, well, the woman's the stalker now, Paul.
Yeah. Reverse Porky's.
Drive past your house and if the lights are dialed down and we'll see who's around.
Yeah. Oh, dude, this song, oh man. Yeah. Yeah, I think this, Joe, I did know about this song because this was on classic rock stations a lot, but it didn't click. It still is, but it didn't click with me that it was Blondie, right? Because again, you think Heart of Glass, you don't think Blondie.
It's a very aggressive rocking song, yeah. Rocking, I'm my dad now.
Yep. Hey, we did the thing
that's
on
some
Dad Rock.
rocking music.
Well, that was some rocking music.
By Iron Butterfly.
Iron Butterfly in the Garden of Eden. Funny story about that song, but that's neither here nor there. It was really supposed to be in the Garden of Eden, but he was so trashed in the studio that he couldn't say it. So they left it.
And their bass player mysteriously vanished.
Weird, right?
Have you ever? That's the whole conspiracy theory about that.
Tell me the conspiracy theory. I
well, he was like I'll talk about it because I don't have all the facts, but I remember he was like a contractor or something. He had something to do with the government after he was in Iron Butterfly, and he just mysteriously vanished one day.
Really?
Under suspicious circumstances.
Oh my god.
Google it, it'll probably pop up.
Yeah, absolutely. That's crazy. Now I got a rabbit hole to look at when we're done here. I'm laying in bed. So another really strong soccer song. And I got to admit, Joe, like I think this song as a young male really gave me maybe the wrong like I started going after the wrong women. Like I want a woman that's gonna sing a song like this. Like this is love.
Yeah.
And I think it set me on a really bad trajectory of really
same here, pal.
some really bad
decisions, but probably because of this song that's like germinating in the back of my brain.
Yeah, like, hey, this stalker, man, this is how I know. This is how I know a woman.
This is how I know she loves me, Paul.
Yes, this is how I know she loves me. Whoops. But yeah, no, this song is an absolute banger. Really great way of going. Next, we get Picture This. Joe, what was your thoughts on Picture This?
Yeah, it switches it up. It's kind of a slower song. Let me see my notes. Yeah, I liked it. It was kind of it slows the pace down. It's a little different, but it's not the left turns that I like. So I don't know. It kind of felt fillerish for me.
It did. Yes.
They have some left turns coming where I'm just like, it starts where I'm like, oh no, and then I'm like, whoa, wait a second. Oh boy.
I will
This one
say
doesn't take left turns. It almost feels like Proto Sunday Girl.
it does feel like Proto Sunday Girl. Absolutely, it does. Now, I will say though, there is a theme going on in this album, and Blondie, Deborah Harry, is horny.
Oh, I mean, it's all because of the cocaine.
It's the
I will
coke.
forever pronounce it as Dewey Cox, man. The cocaine.
Yep, absolutely. I mean, I really do think that had a lot to do with it. But yeah, no, Deborah Harry was horny.
Yeah, she's like Peter Steele horny on this album.
All I want is a room with a view, a sight worth seeing, a vision of you. All I want is a room with a view. I will give you my finest hour, the one I spent watching you shower. I will give you my finest hour. Oh yeah, like holy fuck! All right.
Yeah, I'd be weirded out if somebody watched me shower, honestly.
I don't know. I've been there once or 5 times. Anyways, the point is that it's a good song. It switches it up a little bit. It has some really good, strong pop sensibility with a little bit of that kind of proto. I don't want to say proto punk. It's more proto pop punk because this has a lot more sensibilities.
It's new wave.
Yeah,
it's kind of like I used to not like it, but it's probably the better way to separate it from like Ramones.
Yes.
So, like these bands from the Ramones and Gigi Allen and shit. Like, it's it's slicker. It still has that punk mentality, but it's very just new wave. I'll just call it new wave. It's it is. It is. Again, it feels like Proto Sunday Girl without the catchier hook.
Sure. Absolutely.
It's fine. I like it. I'm not saying I hate it, but I just, it feels like it weird to have this and Sunday Girl on the same album to me. Or at least just call it part 1 or 2. Pull the black flag.
Absolutely. But I don't. Okay, and here's why I get uncomfortable calling it new wave, because now we're going to get to Fade Away and Radiate. What the fuck?
This is one of the left turns I love.
I love this album, by the way.
I love it, but Fade Away and Radiate, I fucking love. It starts like I'm just like, oh no, because it's like that baby girl. Like when women like sing like they're little girls, and it's like, I guess some people like that, and for me, I just get fucking creeped out.
I get creeped out by it.
It's like that Betty Boop thing where I'm just like, oh, don't do that. Don't.
There's a psychology there that fucks with me when I hear it, and so I guess because I know the psychology behind that, like it's like a giant red flag for me when I hear it, and I'm just like, ugh. But the fact that you have that going on with the really, I mean, this is I've written down here in my notes a very Black Sabbath-esque guitar work.
Yeah. There's it takes like weird. Again, this is a left turn, and like we've talked about, like we seem to gravitate towards the left turns on albums.
Oh god,
this is one of them, and it has very Sabbathy guitar, and
this is one of my favorite songs on the album, honestly.
This is
this is such a strong underutilized, underrated track. And again, the lyrics of it are really interesting. I mean, very, I think, LSD-esque. They really put in some the vividry. Ooh, baby, I hear how you spend nighttime wrapped like candy in a blue neon glow. Fade away and radiate. Ooh, baby, watchful lines vibrate soft in brainwave time. Silver pictures move so slow. Golden tubes faintly glow. Super great stuff. Like just it creates this imagery, and it's unnerving. And then you have the guitar work on it, and you're just like, fuck, where did this come from? Because it is such a weird left turn, and it's like nowadays no one would be allowed to put that in.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Well, they could, but then you'd be an indie album. You wouldn't be put out by a major label.
Yeah, right. And then we move into Pretty Baby, which again,
like another left turn, man.
it's just another crazy left turn.
This whole middle section of this album is left turns, and I'm here for it, man.
Me too, dude.
Because
Yeah,
this is like it kind of has like some spoken word shit at the beginning, and then it goes into like this 1950s throwback vibe.
Yes,
which is like fucking just
with
I love it
with some disco sensibility in it.
Yeah,
with that pop disco. It's so good.
It felt like I felt like I could have been in like Crybaby by John Waters, you know.
Yeah, 100%. Well, and she did Polyester. So I this is probably what got John Waters probably heard, and it was like, fuck, I need that for my movie.
John Waters movies. I want to say she was in.
Let me now you're throwing me for a loop on that one. But let's I guess we'll take a rabbit hole.
I feel like she was in Hairspray, but I could be wrong.
I don't think so. Let's
anyway.
Well, no, hang on. We're gonna jump into this here.
Let's get some more of that dead air going.
Yeah, I'm 100%. So her first movie was Deadly Hero in 1975. She was in another big one she was known for was Videodrome in 1983. She was in Terror in the Isles. You're right. She was in Hairspray. You are right. She was Velma Von Tussle in Hairspray.
Yeah, I vaguely remembered that.
Yes, that's right. Yes. But then they did the music for Polyester. But she wasn't in it. But yeah, no, she had a really good kind of, I mean, not great, but she definitely had a string where she was in movies and did her Deborah Harry thing. I mean, she is truly an artist. She's done video games. She was in Grand Theft Auto Vice City. I got to give it to Deborah Harry. She's fucking, people talk about Madonna being like, and Cher being like these ridiculous innovators. And really, I think Deborah Harry is so always just overlooked for being amazing.
I agree.
Yeah. So, so you were right on that. But yeah, no, Pretty Baby is a great, weird song that just, again, right after you go from like Fade Away and Radiate, which has like this 70s heavy metal to this weird rock disco.
Psychedelic lyrics.
It's just,
again, it's a melting pot album, and it was like that time, man. People were just doing that, where they were just getting away with it because labels weren't really interfering with shit, so bands could do what they wanted. And especially around this time, man, they were doing it. This, and again, Talking Heads and the Clash, like. Then you had the hip hop groups, Africa Bambaataa doing what he's fuck. There's just people are just left to do their own thing, and it was pretty amazing.
Yeah, 100%. I could see why the studio was scared of this album, but at the same time, how could you not listen to some of these things and go, "Fuck yeah"? Like, So again, no, it's weird. We're looking at it from hindsight. They were looking at it from a different point of view. Next, we get to I Know, But I Don't Know.
Yeah, I put in my notes like some of the music felt like it came out of a screwball 80s comedy. It worked for me, but I wasn't a huge fan of the duet part.
I wasn't either. Nope. The thing I did like in the beginning was the keyboard riff and then the heavy guitar. That was really good, but yeah, there is some faltering on this one.
Yeah, again, screwball 80s music.
Yeah, it's very screwball. And the thing is, it's not even 80s. I mean, it is, but it isn't. I mean,
it's late 70s. Like, they're ahead of the time with like...
way ahead of the time.
But, maybe not for the best. Because it's not my favorite. It's not my least favorite, but it's...
I give it props for trying for the experimental. Yeah. Like again, Blondie should be touted as one of the great experimental artist groups, and they're instead of a fucking disco thing, they got so fucked by history. Next we get is 11:59.
I put filler song.
See, now, not me. I put another proto-punk new wave. I enjoy it. I actually really enjoy the song. I don't know what it is about it, but you know me, I like that punk vibe, and I really got a good new wave punk vibe on it. Like, today can last another million years. Today could be the end of time. It's 1950. It's 11:59, and I want to stay alive. Let's take the highway down like a rocket to the ocean. I don't know. There's things about it that I really enjoyed. But I could see where you would think that's filler as well. But for me, I have that for the next song, which was "Will Anything Happen?"
Yeah, that too. Like for me, I feel like there's factions in the band now, where it's like we got to be punk, where the other faction was like, well, let's not pigeonhole ourselves. And I think that conflict for me. These two songs come out. That's why they kind of stick out like a sore thumb to me.
Yeah. This one is
not like I dislike them, but they just feel like filler. And the worst. And I'll just say right now, the worst song on the album is the last one. So like Huey Lewis last time, we end on a fucking. The album goes out on a real.
It goes out on a clunker. The thing with this one, Will Anything Happen? I have it as a filler song, but it's
not bad.
That's the thing. Like, I think I want to make it clear, because sometimes you have there's three types of filler songs, right? You have the bad filler song, you have the average filler song, which I think is actually worse than the bad.
Yeah, because it's just uninspired. It's just right. Yeah, it's in the same vein with the other, so let's just crank it out or something like that.
Right, and then you have a good filler song, which is it's not a banger. It's feels like filler, but it's better than what it should be, and it's better than what it's better than it should be, and that's what this one feels like. Will Anything Happen? It does hit a pet peeve of mine, which is the lyrics. Now this is one that's really lyrically it just pisses me off, but because it's just if you do, will anything happen, will it come true, will anything happen, will I see you again, will I see you again, will I see you again, will anything happen, holy fuck, shut the fuck up. But it's a short song too, so then the album switches again and we get Sunday Girl.
Yep, a classic. Stone Cold classic, Blondie classic. Again, we get two bangers back to back, which is kind of weird because it's kind of how the album starts with two hits, and then it's heading toward the tail end of the album. They're like back to back hits.
Yep.
Very weird how that happened, because you don't know if something's going to be a hit. Well, Heart of Glass is going to be a hit.
You knew Heart of Glass was going to be
a hit. Sunday Girl, you don't, but it's so fucking good.
Yeah. It is. It's such a good, and it's at least the version I got was what's called the French version.
Mine was an American, Paul, so I knew what she was saying.
Well, I mean, it is. It was in American, but it's just called I don't know if they released it differently in France or whatever. Like if it had a little more of a disco, or if it had a little bit more of whatever, instrumentation wise. But it was the French version, the version that was released in France, still in English. So it's good. I mean, it's depressing. It's hurry up and wait. I stay up all week and I still wait. I got the blues. Please come see me. What's your loving means to me? Hurry up and wait. There's just Deborah Harry was going through some shit, man.
Yeah, I think so.
I mean, it would be right after this album. I mean, they would only do a couple more albums and they'd be done. So, I think they were in the thrones of their drug height in this. So, then you get Heart of Glass, Joe. I mean, what do you say? It's fucking Heart of Glass.
Song on the album.
Yeah.
As much as I love the left turns, this is just, it's undeniable.
It is. It's an undeniably
song. This is the song you hear in a movie where it's either going to show a club scene right at the beginning of a club scene, or somebody's going to do a fat line of coke.
Yep. Absolutely. This is it's a banger. Now, again, the version I heard was the original, was the 3-minute, not the 4-minute or not the 6-minute disco version.
Yeah, I got the regular one. I listened to because it was the remaster. They put it back on to put the regular version back on the remasters.
Yep. And so, yeah, it's just, and according to them, the song wasn't about anyone. It just was that feeling of what happens when you break up. And the song was co-written by both Deborah Harry and Stein. So I think they probably were fighting and going through a thing at the time and wrote their lyrics out, much like a lot of bands in the 70s did. They just wrote their fucking "Looking at You" Fleetwood Mac, right? Putting their shit out there for everyone. So then we get the last two, and these are both filler songs in my mind. I
don't mind the Buddy Holly cover.
I'm Gonna Love
It's
You
not
Too.
my favorite, but
but it's there, and
it's better than Just Go Away. I'll say that. Like I love, but maybe because I'm a huge Buddy Holly fan. So
sure, and I can get that. It's a suitable cover.
Yeah,
but again,
it's like when Sports ended with the Hank Williams cover. Like, why are you doing that? This was like, okay, well, it's time to wrap it up, and then you get Just Go Away, where you're like, oh fuck, they should have just kept that one. Just ended with I'm Gonna Love You Too, and just fucking call it good.
They really should have, because Just Go Away, lyrically, I wanted to like it, because lyrically it is, I think, a smart song in terms of what she's trying to do, but
it's bad, and they're like,
bad.
This is where you feel like the punk faction are like, well, we got to have this song on here, and it's just like, why?
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I mean, even the one thing that did kind of take me out of the lyrics was, if you talk much louder, you could get a award from the Federal Communications Board. What the fuck? God damn it! Like, no, like someone should have said just no. But I think, again, it was just a filler song. Get it on the album, get it done.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a bad one. This is the only song on the album I will say is bad.
It's bad, and I do think that even like there is some sequencing issues with this album. Of course there is, but I don't think anywhere on the album this would have fit. I mean, again, when you can make Fade Away and Radiate fit and not just Go Away, like this is.
Like with the sequence, I could see the Buddy Holly going with Pretty Baby. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Because they both have that 50s vibe.
Yep.
But this one, Just Go Away, doesn't fit anywhere.
It doesn't fit anywhere.
What the fuck is this thing? What is this?
Yeah. And that brings us to the end of Parallel Lines by one Blondie. Before we get into our takes on it, well, no, let's give our takes on it. Joe, would you recommend Parallel Lines by Blondie?
Yeah, it's a really good album. I really like this album. Again, it's just the sequencing's odd. I mean, you could probably do a sequence yourself now, since we have the technology with streaming services, but into a way that's more, I don't know. Please, like if I get the time, I probably will just
move some tracks around. Yeah. Yep.
But yeah, it's a classic album. So yeah, absolutely. It's good. A lot of great songs on it. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. I have to completely recommend it. There's just banger after. I mean, we went from doing Huey Lewis greatest hits album. This is essentially a greatest hits album.
Well, it has four of their hits on it. Like,
yeah, this album. Yeah,
it's one of those albums. Yeah, like Huey Lewis. This, like, Nevermind by Nirvana, like 10 by Pearl Jam. Like it has all the hits on them,
Yes, completely agree with you. And the critics would agree with us as well. This album fucking charted like nobody's goddamn business. It was number 2 in the weekly charts in Australia, number 1 in the UK, number 6 in the US, number 2 in Canada, 7 in Dutch, 11 in Finland, 9 in Germany, Italian, New Zealand, Norwegian. I mean, this was fucking everywhere. This absolutely blew the fuck up. And it was on the charts from 1978 to 1980, and it was still on the fucking charts for fucking 2 years. All Music 5-star, Blender 5-star, Pitchfork 9.7, Q Magazine 4 out of 5, Rolling Stone Magazine 4 out of 5, Slant Magazine 4 out of 5. There wasn't a lot of hate on the album. However, the Village Voice in 1978 said that Blondie still could not write a perfect hit single. The record was an improvement over their second outing, Plastic Letters. Years later, he wrote for Blender that it was the perfect album of 1978.
Like Village Voices, yeah. Well,
yeah. You're a little wrong there.
Got those kind of thing. Publications were way up their own asses.
100%, and we all know journalism's dead at this point anyway. So whatever. No, I'm kidding, Joe. But it was just it. When it comes to critics, I think especially, you always have those outliers that get sucked up in their own ass and want to be the contrarian, and hopefully that they get the people from it, right? And that's what I think this Robert was doing in 78. He was trying to be, because he's the only one. Everyone else was like, holy fuck, this is power pop, this is new wave, this is disco. What the fuck did these guys do? And this is the only voice out there like, I think it sucked.
This was not a good album.
This was not a good album. Yeah, absolutely. This is Blondie's biggest album. And to the point where there has been so many remasters and so many re-editions, because this is just a moneymaker of an album, to the point where one of the remasters has live tracks of them doing covers of like Bang a Gong from T-Rex. I guess that was a staple of what they would do live at one point, was Bang a Gong by fucking T-Rex. So yeah, you can't say no to this album. It's undeniable. It really is.
Yeah.
So that's it. I mean, again, kind of the aftermath. I got into it a little bit, but they put out an album called The Hunter, and it didn't really do very well. And again, at that point, both Deborah Harry's and Chris Stein's drug use and relationship was at just a complete breaking point. Deborah would go on to do some solo music, would never really get to that height. Chrysalis would get bought by EMI Records. And as I said, they put out a bunch of compilations because it was easy cash grab, because this album is just such a fucking banger. In 1997, they would work things out, although there is a notorious, and I don't know if you remember this show, when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and they actually fought on stage.
I don't remember that.
So a couple of the members were like they've kind of had people come in and out of the band over time. And when they were brought in to do in March 2009, Shirley Manson of Garbage was the one that actually inducted them. And 7 members were invited to the ceremony, and 2 other former members showed up, and during the live broadcast started from the fucking floor, because they were going to perform that night. We're like, hey, we want to perform with you guys. We want to be. And Deborah Harry was like, what the fuck are you doing here? No. And it became like this. It was a thing for a little while. It was a big deal in 2006 because it was such a contentious moment in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, we wouldn't see something like that until fucking Big Baby Jesus with ODB. So there you go. That's Blondie, and they're still, I think every one of the members is still alive and doing things. They're all fucking ultra talented.
Yeah, Chris Stein's like, he has a lot of great photos from the scene, from the like CBGB and stuff. Like, he has like a book of like photography from that era, so really interesting stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's I got to get into it. Like I said, I know a little bit about it and things like that. But I as I messaged you when we started doing this, I'm like, we really got to talk about how Blondie was not a fucking disco band, like and just how experimental they really were, and how that got lost in the annals of history. Yeah. So there we go. Yep. Joe, anything else you want to bring up about the Blondie?
Nope.
All right, Joe. Plugs, buddy.
Yeah, we just released the 2 Crank reviews. We're going to do a short hiatus, and we'll come back with Hudson Hawk.
Nice.
Which it's going to be kind of hard now because it just came out, well, as we're recording it today, that Bruce Willis has full.
I know.
Dementia, so.
Yeah, I don't think he's got much longer. Yeah. That's really sad. And Hudson Hawk, oh man, that was a rough movie. I remember my mom renting that and not shutting it off like halfway through.
I think my dad saw it in the theater and he was just angry. He said it was like one of the worst movies he ever saw.
Yeah, no, my mom turned out like my mom was angry that they rented it. Yeah, she was pissed that she spent like the $3 to rent it. I couldn't imagine going to see it in the theater. Yeah.
How about you, Paul? You got any plugs before I let you know about our next pick?
I am. I'll hold on.
Delaying it's not going to make it any better, Paul.
No. I am working on a conspiracy theory podcast that will be coming from a different point of view than like. We're going to discuss all the I want to look at it and be like, what the fuck is driving people to think this way? It's kind of a take on it. Not like we're going to dive into conspiracy theories and give them credence. This is very much what the fuck? And I'm not talking like your standard ones. Like I'm really looking at some like really crazy ones over the history of time, not just modern day ones of like one of the things I've been researching is breatharians, people who don't believe in eating or drinking. It's like a cult that all they can do is breathe because we need to be with nature and we can't eat or drink anything. And of course they all died out.
Got a long life, you know. Survival rate for that's got to be through the roof.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It was good. It was good. It was up there with the Quakers. They succeeded. Yeah. I don't know when that's going to happen. But it is something that I've been writing out and putting effort into. So that's that, Joe. And yeah, and I'll have some other stuff maybe next week that I'll discuss when we get there. But speaking of next week, Joe,
yeah,
what are we doing, sir?
Oh, Paul, you know we've had a good run here.
Son of a bitch.
So I went and did some more research, and I peppered out the wheel of shit for had some more stuff for you to pick for us. So, Paul, we're going to the wheel of shit. You have an option between 1 and 14.
Well, Monty Hall, I will take door number 3.
Oh boy, Paul, we're going. Whew. Yeah, this is not one of their best, that's for sure. We're going to be doing the Rolling Stones' Emotional Rescue.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah, Emotional Rescue, Paul. Not one of their stronger albums.
No, it's not.
Some would dare say it's probably one of their worst albums. Hence why it's on the wheel of shit.
Yeah, it's.
you go, Paul. We're gonna finally do a Rolling Stones album.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, we are.
We're not doing, Exile on Main Street or,
No.
Satanic Majesty's Request or.
I love that album.
They have good albums, Paul. Sticky Fingers.
They do.
Deed, Beggars.
Yep.
You happen to pick Emotional Rescue, Paul. So.
I like how you blame me for this shit.
Hey, I left it up to chance, and you knocked out a Rolling Stones pick on Emotional Rescue. It's not really on me.
I think this one only had one hit. Wasn't that She's So Cold?
Yeah, I think so, Paul.
Yeah, I think it's.
Remember that big hit, She's So Cold?
I actually like She's So Cold. Thank you, sir.
You would.
Yep. So, yeah. All right. Sent It To Me is one of their biggest hits, I thought. Go ahead.
1980.
Yeah.
Woo-hoo.
Yeah. This was a lot of bands struggled on that 1970, 1980 wheelhouse. Like a lot of those established bands really struggled.
That's part one, Paul, but there's no part two on it.
And there never should have been a part two.
Ooh, look at that title track, Indian Girl, Paul.
Indian Girl, Summer Romance. Yeah, Where the Boys Go.
Down in the Hole.
Down in the Hole.
Thanks a lot, Paul. I can't believe you picked that one.
I know. I'm such a terrible human being for picking that album, you fucking gaslighter. Oh, Joe, real quick, UFOs. I want to report on that because by the time this comes out, we might know that there's aliens. What? We live in the dumbest timeline.
Yep. We do.
Yes, we do.
Can't believe China finally got balloon technology, but here we are.
Well, maybe it would explain the exploding batteries on our phones. Exploding batteries, weather balloons. Next thing you know, North Korea will have the ability to launch a rocket farther than 15 feet. What kind of world do we live in? Dumbest timeline. Maybe those fuckers in Australia will finally start something other than a fucking penal colony. All right, Joe. I'm burnt. Do you got anything else you want to discuss?
Nope.
You want to take us out?
No.
Did we love you? Did we hate you? Do you even care? Yes, you did. We're the best damn review team out there. How did we rate your album?